there anything in your mouth?
No. Yes.
Okay, he's there.
January 18th.
Ready when you are.
January 18th. Miriam babysits Moses. Bethany, said Mother, please entertain Josh for a little while. Bethany frowned as she glanced at her baby brother. But Mom, I'm reading, she whined, turning her attention back to her book. Reading will have to wait, said Mother. Isn't Stacy coming over today? I thought that maybe you two could take Josh for a walk. Stacy had to babysit, Bethany said. I feel sorry for her. She has to take care of her little sister all of the time. She doesn't seem to mind, Mother replied. She seems happy, and it's a good thing to help your mother. Bethany squirmed. She tried to change the subject. Stacy's mother calls her little Miriam, Mom. Why does she do that? Mother smiled. Do you remember the Bible story about Moses? She asked. The king of Egypt was afraid the Israelite slaves would outnumber his people and take over his kingdom. He commanded all the boy babies to be thrown into the river. But Miriam's mother trusted God to save baby Moses. Bethany nodded. She put him in a little basket in the river, didn't she? And his little sister Miriam watched to see what would happen. Right, said Mother, and the king's daughter found Moses. Miriam got his own mother to take care of him. So that's why Stacy's mother calls her little Miriam, said Bethany. It's because Stacy helps her mom take care of her little baby sister just like Miriam helped her mother. That's right, agreed Mother. And when Moses grew up to lead God's people out of slavery in Egypt, I'm sure Miriam was really glad she had taken part of taking care of him. Bethany looked over at Josh, who was sleeping soundly now. Mom, I'm sorry about grumbling when you asked me to help, she said. She smiled. Who knows, maybe Josh will grow up to be someone famous too. Mother smiled. Thank you, Miriam, she said. January 19th, wholesome diets.
Okay, Lauren. Good job, very smooth. Harlan, the battery's about to die.
Okay, tell her the good things, please.
She's very smooth, she's not stuttering, so she's very confident in what she's saying. Lauren, one thing, I'm going to ask you to do those to look at the camera. Everything else is perfect. You're just not looking at the camera.
Okay.
The little boys and girls, they want to know that you're engaging with them.
Here we go, sweetie. Let's try to look at the camera and look at the camera as if Andrew was talking. You're listening.
Okay. January 19th, wholesome diets. Lauren rushed up the steps and opened the door with her key. Since Mom started working, Lauren liked the freedom of being on her own for an hour before Mom got home. She poured herself a glass of milk, grabbed a chocolate cookie, and sat down to watch her favorite program on TV. The first few times Lauren had watched the program, she felt somewhat guilty. But now she watched and even listened to the off-color jokes without feeling any sense of guilt. In fact, she was laughing so hard she didn't hear her mother's car pull up in the driveway. When Mom entered the room, Lauren jumped up in surprise. Mom, you're home early, she exclaimed. I don't think you should be watching that, Mom said. I watch for the good part and do not pay attention to the bad part, replied Lauren. Mom frowned. We'll have tacos tonight. Please go shred the lettuce and cheese, she said. Glad to end the discussion about TV, Lauren quickly headed for the kitchen. Soon, her mother came in. She went to the refrigerator and took out some hamburger. She also pulled out a plastic container and opened it. She wrinkled her nose as she looked at the contents. Then she put the cover back on. "Oh, look," she said as she handed it to Lauren. "Here's a leftover turkey casserole. Since you like it so much, why don't you heat it up and finish it tonight? I know you like it even better than tacos." "Oh, good," exclaimed Lauren. But when she opened the container, she made a face. "Mom," she exclaimed, "this is moldy. It's gross." "Well, don't eat the bad part," said Mom. "Just eat the good part." "It's all mixed up. I can't just eat the good part." "Exactly," said Mom. Lauren slowly shook her head. "I see what you're saying. From now on, I'll find something better to wash after school." "Wise decision," Mom says after she took the container of spoiled food and threw it out. January 20th. Is anyone looking? "Oh, cool. I wish I could get this," said Hannah when she and Beth were at a toy store one day. She glanced around as she held a miniature doll. "I'm going to take it," she said. She was about to put it in her pocket when Beth pointed to a nearby sign that read, "Someone is watching you." Hannah shrugged. "They just put up those signs to scare kids," she said as she pocketed the toy. "Come on, let's get going." She held out another toy. "Do you want one?" "No," replied Beth. "It's wrong to steal. I'm leaving." She turned and walked away. Hannah just shrugged and laughed. As the two girls were about to leave the store, an employee walked up to Hannah. "You'll have to come with me," he said. Beth watched as Hannah was taken to the manager's office. "Sit down, young lady," said the manager. "I've got something I want to tell you, and I want you to see." He pressed a button to see the whole scene of Hannah stealing the doll flashed up on a TV screen. After sternly questioning Hannah, the manager called her parents. Hannah nervously stared at the floor in shame. A time of judgment was ahead. When her parents arrived, Hannah was too ashamed to look them in the eye. Since it was the girl's first offense, "I'll release her to you," the manager said. Hannah was relieved to hear that, but she knew she would still be punished. "You thought no one saw what you did," said her dad as they drove home. "You need to remember that someone always sees. Even if the manager hadn't found out that you did, someone would have known. God says our every deed is recorded. He'll reward or discipline us as we deserve." January 21st. According to the label, Amy wanted a new pair of jeans, but she wouldn't settle it for just any kind. "They have to be the popular name brands or I don't want them," she declared. "Let's go look in Conrad's. They have nice jeans, and they're reasonably priced, too," Mother suggested. "I don't want to go in there. Nobody wears those jeans," stormed Amy. "Someone must wear them or they wouldn't be selling," Mother said. "I'm sorry, but it's either Conrad's or you'll have to buy the name brands yourself." Amy didn't want to buy jeans with her own money, but Mother was firm. So Amy reluctantly spent most of her money savings on a pair of name brand jeans. Amy gloried in her many compliments she received when she wore her new jeans. But when they were washed, they didn't look the same. "Mom, what happened to my jeans?" gasped Amy. Just look at them. They're limp and baggy looking. I paid a lot for these. They should have lived up to their name and lasted a long time. I know. I followed the washing instructions carefully, Mother said, but they just didn't hold up well. Maybe if you take them back to the store, they'll be able to make some adjustment. In any case, I hope you've learned something from this experience. Like what? Amy said, pouting. Things don't always live up to their label, answered Mother. People don't either. People, what do they have to do with this? We who are Christians need to live up to our name and act Christ-like and loving toward others. Amy felt guilty. Just that morning she had whispered unkind things about a classmate who was wearing the new jeans from Conrad's. It's easy to want the label of popularity, asked Mother, but with God's help we can live up to our own name brand. Christian. January 22nd. Betty's decision. Betty thought about her parents were too strict, and she made it to a point to tell them how she felt. Being grounded for 2 days is too big a penalty for coming in late, she told them. And I know I was kind of sassy to Mom one time last week, but, well, I don't think it was that bad, that I should have part of my allowance taken away. None of the other kids in the neighborhood get such hard punishments. God didn't put me in charge of the neighborhood children, Dad replied, but He has given me that responsibility with you. Mom and I are trying to bring you up to the thing that we think is right. To do that, sometimes we have to punish you. I wish you'd let me decide my own punishment, Betty snapped. All right, her father replied. After this, every time Mom or I correct you for something, you go to your room and write down how you think you would have handled it if you were the parent. We'll talk over your ideas, okay? Okay, agreed Betty, smiling broadly. The first time Betty didn't like the way she was punished. It was easy to write down what she thought was a better idea. But as the days passed, she wrote less and less. She really didn't know what to write. Besides, when she was honest about it, she had to admit that it was right for her parents to punish or correct her. After all, they were older and wiser than she was, and she didn't. Didn't the Bible say that parents were to be in charge of their kids and that the kids were to obey their parents? She thought about it over and over again. And she often prayed, asking God to forgive her for the way she had acted. Well, shall we go over your list? Dad asked one day. Betty shook her head. I don't have a list, Dad. She said, I started one, but I found out it wasn't so easy. January 23rd. Light in the darkness. Robin sat on the porch swing with her grandmother and watched the first stars appear in the sky. I love spending the weekend with you, said Robin. I'm glad you do, Grandma said. In a while we'll go in for a Bible story. Robin frowned. I like the Bible stories you read, but I don't like memorizing Bible verses. Mom makes me say them for every Wednesday afternoon before I go to Bible class. What's the point of learning so many verses? Oh, said Grandma, when you know verses, they remind you of how you should think and live. Robin sighed. I guess it takes too much time, she insisted. After Grandma and Robin had a hot cocoa and story, Robin settled into bed. She thought about what her grandma said about her Bible verses. Maybe they're important to Grandma and Mom, but I don't see how they make me good, she thought. She soon drifted off to sleep, but before long she woke up again. Muffy, Grandmother's cat, was crying at the front door. I guess Muffy wasn't around when Grandma went to bed, thought Robin. I'll go let him in. Robin crept quietly out of bed, and was nearly there when she stubbed her toe hard on the coat rack. Ouch! She exclaimed loudly. Robin was still holding her toe when Grandma's door opened and Grandma turned on the light. Why were you walking in the dark? Grandma asked. Muffy's crying to come in and I didn't want to wake you, replied Robin. Thanks, honey, but next time turn on the light so you don't get hurt, said Grandma. After breakfast the next morning, Grandma picked up her Bible. We're going to learn a verse today, she announced with a twinkle in her eye. Your experience last night reminds me that Bible verses are like lights that help us through the times of our life, the dark times, when we were upset or confused. She turned to Psalm 119. Maybe you already know this verse, but it will be good to review it anyway. Robin rubbed her sore toe. Okay, Grandma, she agreed. She grinned. From now on, I'll try hard to let my memory verses help light my way. Can I go to the restroom? January 24th. January 24th. The real owner. Did you deposit your money in the bank today? Asked Mother as Sherry helped make salad for supper. Sherry nodded. I sure did, Mom, she replied. I put in $20 today. My bank account is really growing. Why don't you give your money to the bank? Why did you give your money to the bank? Asked Sherry's little sister, Pam. She had been busy sitting on the table and was listening to the conversation. Don't you want to keep it? I wouldn't give my money to a bank. Sherry smiled at Pam. I didn't give it to the bank to keep it for themselves. I just gave it to them to take care of it for me, she explained. The money is still mine, and I can get it back when I need it. Right, Mom? Mother nodded. That's right. The bank is only keeping our money safe for you. Hey, said Sherry, that's the kind of thing something like my Sunday school teacher said. She said that God made everything, so he really owns it all. But he gives us things to use, and he expects us to take good care of it. What things? Lots of things, replied Sherry, like your new bike and your toys and my money and books and my trumpet, to name a few. And Waggles? Asked Pam, looking at the puppy sleeping on its bed in the corner. Right, agreed Mother. The bank takes good care of our money, and we should remember to do the same with God, who has given us all to use, whether they're things in nature, talents, houses, toys, or money. All that we really have really belongs to God, and we should be using it wisely. January 25th, the Easy Road. Chris frowned as she looked at the stack of church bulletins lying on the table. The youth pastor had asked the kids to choose jobs to help out at church. I should probably help rake the yard, Chris had thought, but that's such a hard work. I'll just offer to fold bulletins instead. Now she began to fold the bulletins as fast as she could, trying not to feel guilty about getting out of raking. But she did feel guilty, especially when she saw there was a lot of raking to be done when she left for home. When she got home, Chris found her little brother Andy in his room. Andy grinned at Chris. I owed you a chore, remember? So I took out your trash. Chris scowled. The basket wasn't even full, she complained. You should have asked me. I wanted you to clean out my closet. Well, taking out the trash was easier, retorted Andy. Chris just opened her mouth to reply when Mom walked into the room. How did your work at church go? She asked. Chris swallowed hard. She realized she felt disappointed when Andy took an easy job instead of asking what needed to be done. She felt more guilty than before. I took an easy job instead of what I really thought I should do, she admitted. So we call that taking an easy route, said Mom. What do you think you should really do? Rake the churchyard, murmured Chris. I wish I had done that instead of folding bulletins. Mom put her arm around Chris's shoulder. First of all, Mom said, I want to make sure to realize that folding bulletins is serving God too. But if raking the yard is what you really felt God wanted you to do, folding bulletins is not enough. Why don't you ask Mr. Miller if you can help with both jobs next week? Chris nodded, feeling relieved. Okay, she said, or if the raking is all done, I'll offer to help mow the church lawn this summer. January 26. Sound of the trumpet. Stephanie was propped up against her pillows as Mother came into her room, Bible in hand. They always read together before Stephanie settled down to go to sleep. Tonight, Mother read from 1 Thessalonians. Mother, said Stephanie when they had finished reading, there are lots of things in the Bible I don't understand. Like what you just read. What does it mean? Just like trumpets sounding and dead people rising in the air. Mother smiled. That's what we call the rapture of church, she said. It's what will happen when Jesus will come to take all Christians to heaven. What about the dead coming out of the graves? Will Miss Evans come out of her grave too? Asked Stephanie. It sounds so strange. Mother smiled. It's going to be a wonderful day, she said. Stephanie shuddered. Brr, it doesn't sound wonderful to me. Sounds spooky and scary. I hope it doesn't happen for a long, long, long time, she said anxiously. Why does that make you feel so afraid, honey? Asked Mother. Because it's spooky, exclaimed Stephanie, pulling the blankets close around her. It gives me the creeps to think of seeing the Lord suddenly in the middle of the night. Stephanie, tell me, said Mother. Will you be afraid to see your friend Miss Evans again? Afraid to see Miss Evans? Echoed Stephanie. I can't wait to see her. I loved her, and I know she loved me. Mother spoke quickly. You're not afraid to see Miss Evans because you loved one another. It's the same with Jesus. Stephanie looked thoughtfully. I guess so, she admitted. You see, for those who love Jesus with all their hearts, there's nothing scary or spooky about his coming. January 27th. Through it all, stunned, Brianna stared at her grandfather. She had just learned that Grandpa Jackson had a terminal disease, and the doctor couldn't even promise that the surgery would help. You're not really going to die, are you? She whispered. Brianna's grandfather didn't answer immediately. That's something only God knows for sure, he managed at last. Cancer of his type is usually fatal, but whatever it is God's will, that will take place. But Grandpa, Brianna protested, that's not fair. Grandma needs you. We all need you. And her voice trailed off. Your Grandma and I have come to the place where we just want God to be done, God's will to be done, whatever it is, said Grandpa. We're hoping you can come to that place too. I'm not sure I can, Brianna said honestly. It all seems wrong. Brianna's grandfather shook his head. No, honey, God never makes any mistakes. I love you very much, yet it may be God's will for me to leave you. Grandpa smiled at Brianna. Whenever it seems to be more than you can handle, remember that God loves you even more than I do, and He'll be with you forever. Brianna looked away, thinking about her grandfather's words. Sure, she said God was in control of everything, and she knew God never made any mistakes, but suddenly Brianna stopped. Grandpa, what had Grandpa said? God loves you and He will be with you forever. With determination in her heart, Brianna spoke silently to the Lord. Help me trust you for outcome, whatever it is, and no matter what. January 28th. God's magic slate. See what I bought, Mother? Said Megan excitedly as she took a magic slate out of the sack. She began scribbling on it as they drove home.
Okay, sorry about my reaction.
All right, just you know what? Just read just one line before it. Carry on. See what I mean? Pick it up from. You don't have to read through the whole thing. Just pick it up from that one sentence before.
Okay. See what I bought, Mother? Said Megan excitedly as she took a magic slate out of her sack. She began scribbling on it as they drove home. Now look, she said as she lifted the top plastic sheet. The writing is all gone. As she talked, her brother Andy simply stared out the window. He wasn't hearing the conversation or seeing the scenery.
Okay, let's just pause for 1 second. Your pen's
Magic slate.
ready when you want.
January 28th. God's magic slate. See what I bought, Mother? Said Megan excitedly as she took home a magic slate out of her sack. She began scribbling on it as they drove home. Now look, she said as she lifted the top plastic sheet. The writing is all gone. As she talked, her brother Andy simply
My phone dropped. Sorry about that.
January 28th. January 28th. God's magic slate. See what I bought, Mother? Said Megan excitedly as she took home a magic slate out of her sack. She began scribbling on it as they drove home. Now look, she said as she lifted the top plastic sheet. The writing is all gone. And as they talked, her brother Andy simply stared out the window. He wasn't hearing the conversation or seeing the scenery. Andy! Mother raised her voice. This is the third time I've called your name. Is something wrong? No. Andy lapsed into silence again. And now you've told another lie, his conscience said. That makes two. Andy sighed deeply, but it was a little lie, he argued with his conscience. I know something is bothering you, Andy, insisted Mother. Want to talk? I told Dad a lie yesterday, Andy blurted out. Mother was silent for a moment. She nodded. He knows that, she said softly, but he was waiting for you to admit it. Megan, busy with her magic slate, had paid no attention to the conversation. She chuckled as she said, I made a stupid mistake. I put a long tail on a rabbit. Oh, well, I'll just erase it and start over again. Again, she lifted the top plastic sheet, and, like the magic, the picture disappeared. Mother smiled. When you sin, Andy, it's coming like writing the wrong thing on the magic slate. She said, but if you don't do anything about it, it remains there. But if you repent your sins and admit them to God, He will erase them. Tell both your dad and the Lord what you told me. Let them know you're sorry and the slate will be clean. Megan smoothed the plastic sheet on her slate. This time I'm gonna do it right, she announced. Me too, Megan, echoed Andy. Me too. January 29th. Special Identity, Part 1. Carla dashed into the house, waving a paper. Please, Mom, may I go? She asked. Her mother read the notice. On Saturday, the shopping mall was conducting a free fingerprint clinic for all children accompanied by a parent. My teacher says it's real important, Carla said, in case I need to be identified sometime. We already know who you are, teased Carla's old brother, David. Carla ignored him. May I have it done, Mom? Sure, it's a good idea, said Mother with a smile. No one else in the world has fingerprints just like you, Carla. You're one of a kind. Woo, that's a relief, laughed David. Then he got serious. When did a report on abortion for health class? I found out that a person's fingerprint pattern appears on the fingers 4 or 5 months before he's ever been born. That shows how special a baby is to God, said Mother. Even before we are born, He forms every little detail in the way that's best for us. It's sad that so many people regard the life of an unborn baby so lightly that they feel that they have the right to end that life just because having a baby would be inconvenient for them. Carla nodded. Miss Weaver, my Sunday school teacher, is going to have a baby any day now. She told us the doctors were afraid that there might be something wrong. They wanted her to have some tests and then have an abortion if God knows just what kind of baby she needs. And whatever He sends will be perfect for her. That's great, Mother exclaimed. To take a life is never right. Even if it's life that is yet unborn, and even if we fear it may even have some defect. Life and death must be in the hands of God. January 30th. Special Identity, Part 2. Carla was excited as she and her mother headed for the fingerprint clinic in a nearby mall. Just the day before, her Sunday school teacher had given birth to a healthy baby girl, a perfect baby. Just think, squealed Carla. Miss Weaver named her baby Carlotta, almost the same as my name. I wonder what she'll be when she grows up. I don't know, Mother said, but God does. He knows who we are before we are born. He has a special plan for our life. Even before we were born, the Lord chose Jeremiah to be a prophet, Samson to be a strong man, and John the Baptist to be a preacher. That's really neat, said Carla. Mom, can we buy a gift for the baby? Mother agreed, so after the fingerprint session, Carla and her mother went shopping for a gift. They chose pastel-colored planter shaped like a building block. Carla carried it as they went out to pick out a plant to put in it. She idly turned it over. Mom, look at this, she said, pointing to a mark at the bottom of the planter. Is this a defect? Mother examined the planter closely. That's the artist's initials, Carla. She said. It identifies its creator. Like my fingerprints identify me? Something like that, agreed Mother. God made you in His image, Carla. He gave you a special identity, His wonderful plan for your life. January 31st. Why so snappy? Erin slammed the door behind her. Oh, that Trina is so hateful. A tear slipped down from her cheek. Mother looked surprised. I thought Trina was your best friend, she said. She used to be, choked Erin, but lately she's so touchy. Nothing I do pleases her. That's too bad, sympathized Mother, but try to be patient with her. She hasn't been a Christian very long. I know, but I'm getting sick of it. Erin sighed. I haven't done anything about it yet, but if she doesn't stop snapping at me, I'm going to. The squeal of tires and the loud yipping of a dog sent Erin and her mother running out to the yard. Oh, Mother, it's Buffy. Someone left the gate open and he got into the street. Erin ran to the curb where a young man was bending over the puppy. I'm so sorry, he told one of them. The dog just ran out in front of me. Mother knelt beside the whimpering puppy. She started to touch him, but Buffy snapped at her hand. Okay, Buffy, you're going to be all right, she said softly. Once more, she reached for him, and Buffy snapped at her. Erin, can you hold his jaws shut? Said Mother. I want to see how badly he's hurt before we move him. Several hours later, they returned from the vet with a stiff and sore puppy. I'm so thankful Buffy wasn't killed, Erin told her father, who had just arrived from work. But he sure is snappy, because he's hurting, Dad told her. He looked over at the top of his newspaper. Do you know the names of Trina's parents? Aren't they Philip and Lisa? Yes, Erin replied. Why? Because they are getting a divorce, replied Dad. Did you know that, Erin? Oh, no. Erin took a deep breath. Oh, poor Trina. No wonder she's been so snappy lately. She's hurting. I'm so glad I didn't snap back at her. February 1st, just like a baby. What a beautiful baby, Mom says as she looked through the nursery window. Hold me up so I can see, begged Samantha. Robbie had been born the day before his cousin, Samantha, was eager to see him. How soon will Robbie be able to play ball with me, she asked doubtfully. Mom laughed. I think it may take a while for him to get the hang of baseball. She said, Robbie will have to grow quite a bit before he can play catch with you. We'll have to be patient with babies and give them time to grow, just like God planned it. Did you know that it takes human babies longer to grow up than most any of the animals God made? Mom asked. Colts can run just after a few hours after they're born. And remember the puppies Tina had last year? They were old. They were old enough to leave their mother in a few weeks. God made babies to learn their parents in a special way. God made babies to need their parents in a special way, she added. And did you know that a baby Christian also needs time to grow? What's a baby Christian? Asked Samantha. It's someone who hasn't been a Christian for very long and doesn't know much about God and the Bible, answered Mom. When you asked Jesus to save you last year, you were a newborn Christian, Samantha, just like Robbie is a newborn baby. Am I a grown-up Christian now? Asked Samantha. Not quite yet, Mom replied. It takes quite a while for baby Christians to grow. They need someone to teach them. That's where I come in, along with your Sunday school teachers and Pastor James, added Mom. God has given us the privilege and the responsibility to teach you as you grow in Him. February 2nd, a call for help. Yip, yip. The small terrier yelped and fled across the yard to the block door. Trixie, screamed Nan. Something happened to Trixie. She and her brother Carl ran to their pet. The dog snuggled in their arms, trembling and whining. Oh, Carl, she's hurt. Where? I don't know, but she's scared, answered Anne. You can tell by the way she sounds. Let's check her over, suggested Mother, who had come to see what was going on. Gently, Trixie was lowered to the floor, where all three intently examined her. Her legs are all right, observed Mother, and she's not bleeding, said Carl. There's no spot on her. Both children stroked the sleek head. Whatever it was, it sure scared her, said Anne. Yeah, I never seen her run so fast. She's not the only one who moved fast, said Mother. I hope she appreciated her two protectors. Carl chuckled. Our Sunday school lesson last week was about how God was our protector. Does he come running like this when we call for help? Interesting question, said Mother. Do you think God needs to run? I don't think so. God is everywhere. Right, said Carl, and it would be pretty difficult to run somewhere when you're already there. Anne hugged her pet. I'm glad God's everywhere and I don't have to wait for him to come when I'm in trouble. He laughed as Trixie tried to lick her face. The others laughed with her. We need to appreciate our protector too, observed Mother. February 3rd, the right answer. On their way home from school, Deborah and Suchu were in the middle of an argument when they met Deborah's Sunday school teacher. Oh, Mr. Brown, said Deborah, maybe you could settle this for us. We had a quiz on math today, only 2 problems. My answers were way off, but Suchu had just a couple of numbers turned around. Yeah, Suchu nodded. Our teacher gave us both a red 0. That wasn't fair, was it? My answers were so much closer to being right than Deborah's. I think I should have gotten better grade than she did. And I say it makes no difference, put in Deborah. So who's right? Well, this reminds me of a scientist who are working on a cure for cancer, said Mr. Brown. Some have come very close to solving this problem, but people continue to die of cancer. So you're saying that there are many times when you have the exact answer, said Suchu thoughtfully. And you're telling me this is one of them, aren't you? Mr. Brown nodded. I'm sorry, but if I were grading this paper, I'm afraid I'd give you a 0 too. You were close, but you were wrong. Now, before you go, I'd like you to answer this question. You may have the exact answer to this one too, but the question is, how can you get to heaven? Well, by being good and doing our best, going to church on Sunday school, and by giving our money to the poor and needy and helping each other. No, disagreed Suchu. It's by accepting Jesus as a Savior. Deborah looked thoughtfully as Mr. Brown nodded. You're right, Suchu. he said. He turned to Deborah and said, "Perhaps we could talk about this some more." February 4th. Instant. Yes! Yes! And I get cookies!
She's doing she's doing such a great job. I mean, it's remarkable. I haven't had to stop her once. It's like
Non-stop. She's perfect.
Except when your phone fell.
Yeah, our mistake.
my mistake. Yes, my bad.
And except just now when Dad called. Oh, Daddy. February 4th. Instant answers. I don't really see the use of praying about things, remarked Cynthia, peeking in the fridge one morning. I've prayed and prayed, but God doesn't seem to be hearing. Mom, Ben yelled in the front living room. The remote's not working again. It's such a nuisance, he grumbled. That's the second time that thing's been broken in 2 weeks, said Cynthia. I hate having to switch channels. She closed the fridge. No orange juice, she complained. I bought some fresh oranges yesterday, said Mom. You could squeeze some. Oh, Mom, whined Cynthia. Why did you get a carton of juice? She sighed. It's so much work to squeeze oranges. Cynthia, it sounds like you and Ben are both developing an instant mentally, said Mom. She eyed Cynthia thoughtfully. Are you judging from what you said a few minutes ago? I'm afraid that attitude has been creeping up your prayer life, too. What do you mean? Asked Cynthia indignantly. Well, you're so used to having things so quickly, conveniently, instantly, that you can't tolerate even small delays, like getting out to switch channels or taking a few minutes to squeeze oranges, explained Mom. And you apparently expect God to answer instantly, too. Cynthia squirmed uneasily as she thought about it. Maybe, she admitted reluctantly, but we're supposed to expect answers, aren't we? Yes, but prayers aren't not like turning on the faucet and expecting the water to come gushing out, said Mom, ruffling her daughter's blonde curls. God's timing doesn't always match ours, and we must learn to wait and not expect instant answers. Okay.